Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Fallout 76. My name's Camel, and today I've got a video for you that I think the community needed. It's basically a dot point format informational video where I've gone through all of the interviews from E3, all of the documentaries, all of the showcases, all of the text-based interviews, and gathered every single noteworthy piece of information that we currently have on Fallout 76. I've tried to categorize them in a sense. A lot of them cross over, and a lot of them don't really fit into a category. I will also have timestamps for every single thing we discuss in this video down in the description, so if you are looking for anything in particular, you can find it down there. And of course, I'm only human, I may have missed something. If I did, let me know what it was down in the comment section below. Not just for me, but for everyone else. But I'm pretty sure I got everything. This is a long list of stuff. And even if you think you know everything about Fallout 76, I guarantee you don't. After watching some of this stuff for the fourth time, I was discovering new things, so stick around. There's definitely something in here that will be new to your ears. And in no particular order, let's start off with the miscellaneous stuff that didn't really have a place to fit. So firstly, Fallout 76's map is 4 times the size of Fallout 4's map. So there's definitely going to be a lot to find, a lot to explore, and from what we've seen in the videos, it looks absolutely gorgeous. Now we will also get experience from building, exploring, crafting, all the usual things, but I think it is worth noting because with it being online, there is a competitive element to it. So the more ways that we know how to get experience, the better. So if you discover a new location, you're going to get experience. If you build a chair, you're going to get experience. And if you craft a kneecap armor, you will get experience. Now, as Todd mentioned, there are softcore survival elements in Fallout 76, so we actually have to eat and drink to stay alive. But food also expires, so again, there's that challenge there. You can't just find 100 cobs of corn and then log out for a month and log back in and you're all good to go. The food will have expired. Being over encumbered is also making a return. If you're carrying too much stuff in your inventory, you will become over encumbered and have to walk slowly. So there will be some kind of maximum carry capacity in Fallout 76. Now here's a hot topic. Microtransactions will be in Fallout 76. However, it is very important to clarify that all of the microtransactions will be based around cosmetic items, and all purchasable items will be available also through gameplay. So anything you can buy via a microtransaction will be cosmetic, and anything that you can buy via a microtransaction will also be obtainable via gameplay. So anything anyone can buy, you can also get just by playing the game. That's a very important thing to clarify. There won't be any paywalls. You won't need to dish out microtransactions to get certain items, but if you want a fast track, they are there, and again, they are just cosmetics. Now, why are there microtransactions? Well, it's a good way to make money, but also all of Fallout 76's updates and future content are all going to be free. So the Austin Bethesda Game Studios studio is going to be working on Fallout 76 after launch, creating free content. They can't keep a studio up and running without microtransactions. They can either make people pay for the DLCs and updates, or they can keep it free but have microtransactions, where the whales, which is a term for someone that spends lots and lots of money in microtransactions, the whales will basically pay the wages of Austin. So yes, the microtransactions are not something you need to fear. All of the content coming out after Fallout 76's release will be free, and they're going to have several small content beats and then a big content beat. So little updates here and there, and then a big one, essentially a DLC, which is free. Of course, this could change at any point in the future, especially with the game being an ongoing one. You know, in 3 years they might go, you know what, we're making some content that's definitely worth selling and not just giving up for free, and they might change their policy. But for now, and the foreseeable future, all updates are going to be free. And all of these updates and future content will be handled by Bethesda Game Studios' new studio in Austin, that was formerly Battlecry Studios. So this will leave Maryland and the Montreal studios for Bethesda Game Studios free to work on Starfield and The Elder Scrolls 6. Of course, I'm sure when the time comes, Austin's going to jump on board that as well. Now back into the game. Items degrade like we had in Fallout 3. Weapons and armor degrade. The more you use them, the more times they get hit, whatever. Their durability is going to go down. You'll need to repair them back up. Again, because it's online, they need to build a kind of competitive environment with constant micromanaging. Now, as I mentioned before, food also rots, so you'll need to keep finding new food or become a really good chef character. Now, they are also using an updated version of their old engine that has net coding from Quake's engine injected into it, and then on top of that, a bunch of new improvements. So they're using a new lighting system, they've got a new rendering system and a new weather system, all of which allows for 16 times more detail to be on screen at any given time, which will lead to massive draw distances. Now, these new weather systems also mean you can see a big storm somewhere you might be going, and therefore purposefully or tactically avoid that area because you can see this big rad storm there. Again, this is working off of the new rendering system, so now we can see those massive storms really far away. Now, you can also have multiple characters. This is important because it means you won't have to constantly change the traits or perks of the one character you play. So if you play a guy for 10 hours who's super tanky, you're a bit like, you know what, I want to play a sneaky guy. You can just create a new sneaky character. You don't have to alter the guy you're already playing. Now, when you die through whatever means, you pick a place to respawn. So if you died because some crazy deathclaw destroyed you and you don't want to respawn there, you can pick a different place to respawn. I'm sure there's limitations to this, but you will have some options when it comes to respawning. Now, it's very important to also note that when you die, there is no loss of items. The way Pete and Todd described it was, there's no loss of items, people don't steal your stuff when you die. All that happens is there's a loss of time, in the sense that it's just a roadblock that will set you back however much time you spent getting to where you were just then. So this is good to know. If someone does sneak up and kill you, they're not just going to steal, your lifetime's worth of progression through Fallout 76. They'll get a small reward, you'll lose nothing except a few minutes, and you can respawn somewhere else. This is another important thing. Apparently, when you sit down and play it, it feels like Fallout. Let's say you'd never heard of Fallout 76, but were a big fan of Fallout 3. If someone sat you down, handed you a controller, and threw you into Fallout 76, within the first few seconds, you'd be like, alright, this is a Fallout game for sure. Again, and of course, I personally haven't played it, but this is what Todd and Pete have said, that it definitely feels like a Fallout game. There are also no vehicles. Well, at least usable vehicles. There are, the standard cars and stuff on the roads that you can shoot and make blow up, but in terms of driving a vehicle or a car or a motorbike or whatever you are thinking of, you can't do that. There are no vehicles, we will be walking everywhere. There was, however, no mention of fast travel, so don't know if that's going to be in there. There will also be private servers, which will be coming well after release. The point of a private server is to mod it if you wish, or to just run around by yourself if you wish. Hopefully for me as a YouTuber, this will give me access to the console commands and I can toggle free camera, change the time of day, go into God mode, turn combat AI off, disable enemies, go through walls, do all the good stuff that I need to do to create videos. Now, speaking of mods, they said that they are 100% behind mods. Of course, the longevity of most of their games is based in mods. They are currently working on a service to support mods in Fallout 76, which will probably be through the private server thing. Now, what really creeped me out about this was they kept referring to how they're going to implement mods in Fallout 76 as a service. Why is there a service? We've never had a service before, apart from Creation Club. So that is something to keep in mind. Don't get too freaked out, but they might implement a different system, or as they said, service for using mods within Fallout 76. The size of the camps that we can build are the same size that we see in the videos. They're not as big as the settlements we saw in Fallout 4 or the settlements we could build in Fallout 4, and while Todd wouldn't give an exact unit size, which would be irrelevant to most players, we can observe that the camps or settlements that we can build are definitely on a smaller scale than what we experienced in Fallout 4. Now, if at any point your settlement gets attacked, for example, if another player attacks it, you can repair your settlement with one click of a button. It will cost resources, of course, but Bethesda Game Studios wanted to minimize griefing, so if something does happen to your settlement, you can repair it really easily, and it won't be a massive issue for you. Now, your camp is also attached to your character, so when you log off, so does your settlement or camp, and when you log back in, so does your settlement or camp. So if you don't play for a week, your settlement's not going to be sitting there getting run through by dozens of people. Now, your camp can also be packed up and then moved to a different place. Now, packing it up and redeploying it in a new location will cost caps, as we observed in some of the video footage. We will also get experience from building. There are also a number of different varieties for each building. For example, if you want to build a chemistry station, there are like 4 different skins or variations that we can build the chemistry station in, and then that concept applies to all things that we can build. They've also spoken about having robot-based vendors that you can build in your settlement or camp or base or whatever you want to call it. And we've also observed in the footage that there are these kind of vending machine type things that you can build in your settlement that other players can come up to and buy and trade with. How the stock or exchange of caps works exactly we don't know at this point. And different structures within your settlement or camp may also require specific perks for you to build them. So even if you make your character a really good building character, you still might need to find someone who's, say, a super good medic to build a particular medic building within your camp. Now, crafting. There are events that will reward players with rare materials for crafting. So while there are definitely different elements of this game, like, you know, there's a lot of combat, there's building if you so wish it, there's crafting if you so wish it, there's definitely tie acrosses. Like, if you want some really good crafting materials, you're gonna need to go out and do this crazy combat event thing to get some rare materials to then craft with. So all of the old crafting systems from Fallout 4 will be in place in Fallout 76, along with a plethora of new stuff as well. So we'll be crafting weapons, weapon modifications, ammunition, armor, clothes, food, drinks, medication, drugs, everything. Basically anything you can use in the game, we'll be able to craft it. Now, they also mentioned that when it comes to crafting, you'll have to find the recipes for any given crafting item before you can craft it. And of course, there's way more things to craft than in Fallout 4, therefore there's a plethora, a magnitude of recipes to find within Fallout 76, and they do have a variety of sources such as quests, loot drops. If you kill something high level, you might get one, random loot just from chests or lockers, whatever. And I'm sure there will be some other avenues to acquire these recipes. Whether they're tradable amongst other players, we don't know yet, but I mean, if perk cards can be swapped between players, I would imagine a recipe can be. And again, they backed up that there is a magnitude more crafting recipes than there was in Fallout 4. And just to recap, we will get experience from crafting. Now, of course, everyone was wondering about VATS, and VATS is back, but this time it's in real time. In Fallout 3, it would stop time. In Fallout 4, it slowed down time, but now, of course, it's online. You can't slow down or stop time. That'd be unfair to all the other players. So it is in real time. Now, the purpose of this is to give a kind of more guaranteed accuracy to players that don't have really good muscle memory and crazy esports level aim. So if you're not that good with a mouse and keyboard or a controller, you now have this avenue where you can just shoot someone in the head because you've done it through VATS. Now, there are also 63 creatures / enemies. We will have a lot of the classic enemies, but there is also a ton of new enemies that we've never seen before and we might never see again. The basis of this is that there's so much radiation because this is so much closer to when the bombs dropped that the mutations that a lot of the wildlife are experiencing are really crazy and more vicious than we've seen in any of the Fallout games beforehand. And in case you're unaware, all of the previous Fallout games are set many, many years after Fallout 76 is. And one of the explanation points of why we've never seen these things in previous Fallout games further down the timeline is that perhaps these mutations were so bad that whatever that particular animal was just died out because it couldn't survive with those mutations. But in this timeline, 25 years after the bombs dropped in Fallout 76, these creatures are here, so we're going to see a whole bunch of big, crazy new creatures that we've never seen before, and again, might never see again. Now, of course, there will be no humanoid NPCs, so all the humans you run across will be real players, or real people, I should say. And with raiders out of the question, there are kind of a new humanoid enemy faction out there called the Scorched. These are basically people that were humans, but now they're kind of in between human and feral ghoul, and they're just like these super melted, burnt people. They're kind of like an intelligent feral ghoul. They can use guns and weapons and such, but they've got a very pack mentality, crazy, ferocious, zombie-like characteristics. So they're kind of replacing like raiders and ghouls. Now, a big worry for a lot of people was the nukes. There are nuclear missiles that can be fired in Fallout 76. A lot of people had massive worries about this, including myself. I did not want my day ruined or my gameplay experience ruined because someone decided to drop a nuke on my head. Well, let's take a look, because nukes are a little bit more complicated and a little less griefy than, or a lot less griefy than we may have first thought. So first of all, the codes to fire the nukes are very hard to get and will likely require planning from multiple people. So you can't just fire a nuke off willy-nilly, it's something you have to work and build towards. Once you actually get the codes, you'll then have to go to the place where it's going to be launched from and then choose a specific area for the nuke to be fired at. Once the nuke hits this, it will kill everything in the area, but this will also create a high level zone. So the nukes are definitely based around endgame content. Of course, it's an online game with a finite amount of content, so they're trying to create these repeatable endgame scenarios or events. Now, of course, if anyone is standing within the zone where the nuke hits, they will die. If your camp is within the zone when a nuke hits, it will be severely damaged. But again, we can repair our camps with the click of a single button. So at the very worst, if your camp gets nuked, you can rebuild it in a second. Again, it's the balancing act of like, we want it to kind of be fun and a challenge, but also we don't want people to just constantly feel griefed. Now, at one point they were mentioning that scorched beasts, those big kind of gargoyle bat looking things, will crawl out of fissures in the ground, and these fissures must be nuked, which will seal them up and prevent the scorched beasts crawling back out. And apparently this is part of the main quest, or at the very least the nukes and the purpose of the nukes is tied into the main quest line. And of course, the purpose of the nukes is to seal up these fissures, so it's going to be connected in one way or another. Now, players and players' camps or bases or whatever cannot be targeted by nukes. If a player or a player's camp happens to be where a nuke falls, it's going to get pretty messed up. But the person firing the nuke can't go, ha ha ha, Mr. Matty Plays is on the map, I'm gonna destroy him with a nuke. It's all based around where these fissures are or where you want to create a high level zone. It's not about dropping a nuclear warhead on someone for a meme. Now, while we're on the topic of other players, you can of course play by yourself, but all this means is that you won't be in a group and you won't have friends around you, you'll just be walking around by yourself, but you will always be on a server with 24 to 32 other people. As we've mentioned, there are no humanoid NPCs in Fallout 76, so any human that you run across is another player. There will be a voice chat along with an emote wheel, and there's also a photo mode if you so wish to use it. And something I have gathered is that Fallout 76 really won't be a PvP kind of game. It won't be a battle royale, it won't be an MMO. My biggest fear was constantly being killed by some meme lord and just not being able to play the game or have fun at all. But there are definitely systems in place to prevent that. While most of these anti-griefing systems have not been explained, apparently they are there. So it's definitely more beneficial to work together in Fallout 76, but there is some small PvP element where you can run across someone and they can just shoot you in the head. There is also a revenge system, so if this does happen, you can opt to fight that person back after they've killed you to get your revenge. There will be a reward for it. But if you say, no, I don't want to fight that person, then you'll basically never see them again. The servers they're using are very flexible, just seamlessly morphing people in and out of servers if the need is there. Such as someone walking around shooting everyone on the head constantly, they're going to get seamlessly moved to another server while no one's looking and while they're not looking at anyone. So you can't just constantly be camped by the same person over and over again. Thank Atom. Now, speaking of these very flexible servers, if you log in and some of your friends are online, you can just, again, seamlessly go into their server. And there isn't some weird load screen thing, it's just like, you guys will just be seamlessly morphed onto the same server. So while there are servers, you'll never have to experience them. You don't have to log in, then choose a server to go onto. When you create your character, you don't have to dedicate it to a specific server. There's basically an infinite amount of very flexible servers where the game will move people if need be, or if you want to play with some friends, you guys will be grouped on the same server together. And again, there's no load screen screen server loading things. It's all seamless and it's all smooth, and you will never encounter anything to do with the server. It's all there happening in the background and you'll never notice it. Now, if you do decide to group up with your friends or just random people you run across, there is a team limit of 4. That's the current team limit. They did mention that this could change at any time. Anything in Fallout 76 could change at any time. But at the moment, there is a group limit of, or a team limit of 4. Now, this is something that caused some controversy. Your location will always be shown on the map to all other players. So when you go to your map, you will see the location of all the other players on that particular server. Now, something they did mention was that as soon as you crouch, your marker will vanish for other players. I don't know if this is talking about the little compass marker you have at the bottom of everyone's screen, or if it means on the map, but in some sense, your marker will vanish when you crouch, when you're sneaking. Again, I don't know if that means completely, as in on the map. It must do, because if it was just your dot on the compass and they go, oh, I can't see anymore, then they'll just go to the map and go, oh, he's right there, I can still see him on the map. So surely your marker vanishes completely. And if there is a hostile player or an enemy around you, they will show up as a red dot on your little compass at the bottom of the screen there. Now, here's something very interesting. They've introduced something called mutations. So firstly, we should clarify that the RAD system is the same as in Fallout 4, where your radiation level and your health bar share the same bar. So the more radiated you get, the more and more your maximum health pool goes down. So if you have 100 points of health and then you get 50% irradiated, you're now only going to have a maximum health of 50 because the RADs have taken up the other 50. But there's this really interesting thing called mutations. Your character gets these mutations the more irradiated they become, or the longer and longer they remain irradiated. Now, mutations act like traits. Most of them have actual kind of perky things around them, like there'll be a very positive thing from the mutation, but also a big negative thing. I have no examples because we haven't seen them yet, but something like you run 20% faster during the day, but 20% slower during the night. You know, there's a plus and a minus. Mutations bring those to your character. And there are also some apparently that are visual. So while you might not get a perk or a trait or anything, I don't know, you might get an extra eye on your forehead, you might turn green, I don't know. Now, something also very interesting is that they said there are ways to permanently get these mutations on your character. So if you really love one of the traits that these mutations give you, or you really like the visual element of what one of these mutations gives you, you can permanently attach it to your character. Now, if you don't like the mutations, they can be healed through meds and RadAway, but they didn't mention that if you permanently attach a mutation to yourself, if you can then get rid of it, say in a year's time, you're like, you know what, I actually don't like that. I would imagine there will be a way to do that, but as a whole, this whole mutation thing seems very, very interesting, and I think it's a smart idea to have several different avenues to get traits or perks or stat elements that will affect your player character. So we'll basically have a trait system via RAD exposure. It's quite an interesting system. I'm looking forward to seeing more of that. Now, coming off of all this perk stuff, each time you level up, you will be able to choose a perk card. And while you may be able to acquire all of the perk cards in the game, you can only have a certain amount of perk cards active at any given time. Now, these can also be swapped out. So if you need to change some of your perks around, you can do that. But again, there's only a certain amount you can have active at once. So you can't just get every perk in the game and have all perks active at once. You'll have to pick and choose. Now, as I just said, they mentioned that the perk cards can be swapped out, but I would imagine there has to be some kind of limitation to this, otherwise your character could just be the master of all trades. If you go to build something, you just put all the building perks, and then when it's time to go out into combat, you just take all the building perk cards away and then add all the combat perk cards. I'm sure there has to be some kind of limitation or penalty for swapping perk cards out. But it also has to be accessible enough where if you do have a perk card that's really not working out, you can swap it. Now, perk cards can also be traded between group members, and the higher your character's charisma level is, the higher level perk cards you can trade. I don't know if that's one way. I don't know if you can only give really good perk cards or if you can also receive really good perk cards because your charisma's good. And speaking of charisma, I have made a whole video about what's the point of charisma in Fallout 76. Be sure to check it out if you like. Now, building off of these mutations, traits, perks, whatever, we get onto another video I've already done, which is the role-playing element. So it's been made pretty clear that Fallout 76 will have much more of a role-playing based playstyle, where you have a role to play. You could be the best sniper, you could be the best chef, the best builder, the best crafter, the best merchant, the best melee guy, the best lone wanderer, whatever it is. You can make your character super useful and super specific in what that character's good at, so then as a group with other players, you guys can benefit from each other's master of your crafts. So this is going back to the Fallout 76 won't so much be PvP, because instead of running across someone like, hey, I'm gonna kill them, yeah, that's gonna be great, you might be like, dude, please tell me you're a good medic because I need some help, my knee's busted out, it's got some infection, I got a mutation, there's a mushroom coming out of my ear. So that makes running across other players more of a like, hey man, can we help each other out, rather than, yeah, I'm gonna shoot this guy. Now there is apparently a main story in Fallout 76. We don't really know much about it other than the nukes will be involved in some sense. I'd imagine that will be, you know, the kind of final quest thing. But there are also a lot of side quests which you get via holotapes, notes, terminals. They mention robots, I'm not sure how that's gonna work. I feel like they cut intelligent NPCs out because Fallout 4 had a voice protagonist, and they didn't really want to go back to that, so they didn't know how to implement an interaction system between a player and an NPC. Of course, when it's player to player, you can use a microphone and talk, or you can use an emote wheel. But when it comes to interacting with an intelligent NPC, such as a robot, I don't know how it's going to go down. But anyway, there's a lot of quests that you get via just exploration or environmental storytelling, which is my favorite elements of Bethesda Game Studios games, environmental storytelling. If you're unfamiliar with this concept, it's basically like you walk into a town and instead of there being an NPC like, hey, here's the story of the town, as you walk through, you know, you'll find a basement where some guy was doing experiments, and then you realize he was cooking up some cheese laced with LSD and then feeding it to everyone in the town, and then the town went crazy. And this whole story is discovered via you as you explore these environments, environmental storytelling. Of course, with no intelligent or humanoid NPCs in Fallout 76, a lot of quests and a lot of the interesting side of the lore or cool stories and tales are going to be based around environmental storytelling and us exploring the world and discovering all of the goodies tucked away. Now, apparently, a lot of these side quests are also repeatable, and there are also events and group events that will occur that you can join in, get some good loot or whatever, but again, a lot of it is repeatable. Of course, it's an online game, there's a finite amount of content. In some way, they needed to make endgame elements of it repeatable or replayable. And this will all be taking place in West Virginia, in case you've missed the memo. Now, in West Virginia, at least in Fallout 76's version, there are 6 distinct areas of the map. We have the Toxic Valley, the Mire, the Forest, the Savage Divide, Ash Heap, and the Cranberry Bog, all of which have very distinct and unique biomes. And of course, if you drop a nuke in any of those 6 different areas, the high level areas that will be created there will be different and will reflect the area it was dropped in. So if you drop a nuke in the forest, you might be fighting like crazy forest-based enemies that have been super mutated from this recent nuke. But if you drop a nuke in the Cranberry Bog, you might be fighting super irradiated intelligent plants or something. So there's a lot of variety, a lot of different areas with completely different biomes, with different plants, different terrain, different animals, different creatures will be running across, different feels to them, and then they'll be changed and made unique even beyond that with nukes. And the last few dot points here are based on weapons and armor, so the legendary system will be returning from Fallout 4. If you're unfamiliar with the legendary system, every now and then you'd run across an enemy who would be called legendary insert enemy name. If you run across a legendary Radroach, it's literally called Legendary Radroach and will have a little star next to his name. It'll be a lot harder to kill than a normal Radroach, but when you do kill it, it will drop an item with a legendary star next to it. And these items, they're the same as normal items in terms of like, you know, you might get an axe. It will do all the same things as an axe, but will also have a legendary effect applied to it. So it might be the Axe of Fire. And every time you hit someone, it does 10 points of fire damage as well as what an axe normally does. So that system is going to be coming back in Fallout 4. However, apparently they have added a tiering system. How this works, we're not sure, but basically I would imagine instead of the legendary Axe of Fire, there might be 4 different versions of the legendary Axe of Fire with a variety of different damages and things like that. Perhaps you have to get a legendary item, it's always the worst possible version, then over time you can upgrade it. I don't know how it's going to work, but there's going to be a more complicated or complex system to Fallout 76's legendary item systems. And something that has kept me on the edge of my seat is there has been no mention of unique items. I don't know if you've ever seen my channel's content before, but a lot of it is based around making guides and exploring the lore of unique items in Bethesda Game Studios games. So with no mention of unique items in Fallout 76, I'm not very hopeful that there's going to be much content to be made in this game. I'm sure there'll be things to do, but the classic like 80% of the content made from, say, Skyrim is unique stuff. You know, there with that gone, it's going to be a little less interesting as me. But that does conclude all of the dot points that I've gathered, all of the information that I've herded together from the various stretches of the internet that came from E3 this year, 2018. And I do hope that it has helped you out in some way, or that you've learned something new about Fallout 76 that you didn't quite know. Again, it can be kind of complicated when there's a bunch of different sources of information scattered across different websites, different YouTube channels. The point of this video was to help the community understand what we know so far about Fallout 76, and I do hope it has done just that, helped you out. So I'd like to thank you very much for watching. I'm very much looking forward to seeing all of your feedback and thoughts on all of this information down in the comment section below, and of course, if I did forget anything, be sure to leave a comment and help myself out and everyone else in the Fallout community. So thanks very much for watching. I've been Camel, and I will see you very shortly in the next video. I'll see you there soon.